Hello, everyone. Today, we have a very special guest, Mr. D C Agrawal. DC is a very well-known name in our IIT community. Everybody knows him pretty much, right, DC?
Yeah, it's good to have a short nickname.
So DC is IIT Bombay alum. He is a president of IIT Bombay Heritage Foundation too, and he has spent almost 20 plus years really volunteering and contributing to IIT community. DC, we are so grateful for the work you have done for our IIT and its alums.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So DC, first question I have for you is, which year you moved to US?
I'm an old timer. I moved more than 50 years now.
I know we are not going to disclose your age to anyone.
I moved in 1969, right after I graduated. Wow. And it was a tough decision trying to figure out what to do after you graduate. Should you get a job? Should you go for further studies? And if you go for further studies, you go to USA was a big attraction that time.
Yeah, it was.
Because also I was thinking, I was about to join IIM Ahmedabad, that got in. And so then I got some scholarship and I said I can I like to travel and experience, see what the world is like now rather than later. So I decided to come to US in 69 to do my master's.
Master's in engineering or master's in?
I did operations research, and then while I was studying it, I did a minor in economics because.
So no wonder you wrote that $30 million check at the age of 22.
Not 22, it was 28.
All right, 28. I'm also growing old. So at the age of 28,
my hand was shaking.
Check.
My hand was shaking. This is in 1980. And more interesting was it was a fairly complex deal to acquire the assets of what was then the largest private bus company in US from the utility, which was Public Service Electric and Gas. So there's so many issues related to finance. It was the purchasing of the assets, what the value was, but more interesting was the liabilities, which was the pension liabilities of this company, because employees had been not, and the new law had come in. So the legal issues, trying to understand what our rights were. And it turned out to be interesting because the money we paid together with the contributions they got from the taxes and others, they ended up purchasing a $110 million pension liability to fund the pension liabilities. And that cost changed by $6 million, because in 1980, the prime was like 18-19% rate. Wow. That was a very strange time. I mean, people can't relate it to it when the interest rates are like 2 or 3% today. And within a month of the signing of the deal and the interest rates had gone up. So they were able to save $6 million on buying the annuity to fund. So it was I felt very good about it. It was because it was trying to bring together a number of different interests, and for my efforts, trying to save the maximum money you could to do that.
Yeah, so it's, DC, and we talk about it all the time, is we were given these opportunities, and where you negotiated some of the most complex deal. You wrote the software, I remember, for that industry. Probably you were the first one to even understand that there can be a software which can help you manage your cost better. You were able to negotiate. You hand deliver a $30 million check, which in today's term may be almost $500 million or $1 billion. I don't know, but it's just ridiculous, right? And you close the deal and everybody went home happy. That's never happened, right? We all know when you create a situation like that, there are government parties involved, there are private parties involved, you are able to do it. So the question I really have for you is, what role curiosity has played in your life?
Well, curiosity to know more than what you know is always an important factor, because there's only so many things you know. and then you try to learn more than about other topics. So like got a degree in engineering, and you understand numbers a little bit because of finance and that background. But then you don't understand really the legal issues and the law and all that. So you do end up researching and this kind of thing. I mean, this deal, for as mentioned, of this came out of reading the annual reports of this public service electric and gas.
Wow.
And in the annual reports footnote, there's a small footnote buried in the like page number 50 of the report. It's basically acknowledged that they're responsible for the pension liabilities. So when I saw the report, I went and wrote a memo to my boss, and then which was the commissioner of transportation in New Jersey. I said, we have a very good case. He said, what do you think? So I said, okay, let's hire a lawyer to confirm what I'm saying, hire an actuary. And it within 3 months confirmed that we are on solid grounds. So you have to take your curiosity at the next step, as you say, to find out and research other topics which you don't know about uh, before you can do the next steps you take in any deal making.
Absolutely. So the point I'm trying to make, DC, is we are all here, especially the people in America and India some are very, very successful, and the kind of role model you are for us is amazing. And what I attribute to is our curiosity is more than anybody else. It's not like we are smarter or better than anybody else, but we are naturally curious, and then we apply the learning we have in IIT, which is systematic thinking, and that's how we are able to solve these complex problems. And that's how some of us are even leading companies like FedEx and Google.
Yeah, I think in addition to curiosity, one thing which you have is the hard work we do and the learning we do. It gave us a confidence to ask the right questions when we don't know the answers, and to reframe the questions to better understand the subjects matter we're talking about. So to me, the confidence we have when we don't know something, we ask, and when we know something, then we move ahead. And that confidence is something which I value the most of my IIT education in a way. Because arguing with friends in the dorm, learning from the teachers, we didn't argue in that generation too much with the teachers. We took their words, but if we didn't agree, we sort of blanked out, if we agreed or disagreed.
Sure.
But there are teachers, we learned a lot. But that confidence gave really, when I came here, that's all we had is our education. And what we didn't know, we did the hard work is to really work hard and know things which you didn't know at that time. So that's really, I call it at least for me personally, that was the best thing to do. Like you talked about writing programs and models, the whole thing was, you could write programs and in all those old languages like Fortran and all that. But the programming was less important. What more important was how you could use that effort to solve a business case. Like I got involved in labor negotiations because I wrote a little program. In hindsight, it is really just adding numbers together, which in an Excel spreadsheet you can do in 30 seconds a day. But I sort of started.
So we are talking about early 80s. I want
early
to make
80s,
sure that our
70s,
audience knows that.
understanding the compounding interest rate. So I said, if I don't have to pay the money upfront, but pay it in 3 installments over the year, I can save money, and people at the end of the time period will get the same wage rates.
Yeah.
Or looking at work rule changes, and trying to say. So I wrote this little program, and this lawyer who was he turned out to be he went on to become Secretary of Transportation under Jerry Ford.
Wow.
So he said next to me, he said, you sit next to me and explain to me what you're doing. I said, okay. So I explained to him, and he got it within like 5 minutes. I said, okay, now you tell me what do you think I should do? I said, okay. I mean, I was that time like 23, 24, and I got to know him well. And but he was a lawyer, so I learned the legal aspects from him, how to negotiate also. And but so you run into good people who mentor you also, So that's the other thing which always helpful.
So if I ask you, what are the 3 key things you attribute to your success? Curiosity is number one. I hear that. What else?
Curiosity, I think you got to have the confidence. You do the hard work
So hard work is number two.
and not be afraid to ask,
Oh,
because
that's impressive.
because I was, I spent a career in negotiations. So one of the more interesting periods was in 1981. Um, we were negotiating contract with, there are 16 rail unions. If you run a railroad, you have to negotiate with different rail unions based on the skill set. There's a range for train engineers, for conductors, for electricians, for the foremen, for the clerks. And this is an industry which goes back to early 100 years or more, or maybe 150 years now.
Maybe more.
So the work rules in this industry go back to that period of time. So in 81, we were starting a new railroad, which was for commuter trains. So did the hard work, and I was then I had to figure out at what stage do I really ask them for the changes in work rules which go back, because people in industry or any place, they get wedded to what they know. And here I had to convince them that, this industry is changing, you have to move. So I had to make some major changes in work rules. So I used my OR experience to figure out where we wanted it to be. And we came up with new sets of work rules for the train engineers. You won't believe these guys for 100 years have been working on a system which was designed, and the steam locomotives used to run at 12.5 miles per hour. So
Wow.
day's pay was 8 hours, was 100 miles. So if a train ran 100 miles a day, that was one day's pay. If you ran 100 and 200 miles, then you got double for the day.
Wow.
So you had 2 days in one day. Our trains in New Jersey Transit that time were running at 125 miles per hour. So literally, we're doing the commuting trip from New York to, say, Trenton in an hour's trip.
Yep.
60-mile trip in an hour, and or more because of some stops. So I said, these guys are making for one day, 2 trips, like 2 days pay. And some people are not making any money. So I said, look, we have to change this thing, bring it to you 8 hours
Change
a
the
day.
rules.
And so people are saying, how are you going to ask these guys of this? I said, hey, got to educate them. And this is the economics of the business today.
Yeah.
So I was not afraid to ask. I asked for part-time employees also, right to hire part-time employees, because there are more people riding the trains in the morning than coming back in the afternoon, was more dispersed over the hours. So when I was asking, everybody in my own team didn't believe that we should be asking these.
These kind of questions.
Worst thing they will say is no,
Exactly.
that's
what else can go wrong?
What are you going to be? So it was a fun thing. We got quite a lot what we got, and the changes in work rules, the people got the same amount of pay at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But we were able to double the service, especially the off-peak service, at no cost, at zero marginal cost, as I say. And we increased ridership. So that was the primary goal. And over the 20 years, we could see the effects of these work rule changes. You could see the impact of new services you could do.
So mantra of DC's life is don't be afraid to ask.
Don't be afraid
you
to
don't
ask.
You don't know.
You don't get. You'll never get.
You may not get it ever, but you don't know. That's impressive, actually. And if you look back, and if I look back, even in my own life, when I ask, things happen. And it's maybe a philosophical thing, but if you don't ask, how the hell anybody know what do you want?
Exactly. It's a simple thing, but it really helps you, in my view, anyway. And
plus, the same time you prepare. You see, you were not just asking. You did the analysis. You had your point. So it's not like asking, oh, yeah, give me multi-million-dollar, but you prepared yourself and say, hey, we are going to cut this multi-million-dollar budget, but it is not going to deteriorate your quality of life. And that's impressive. I mean, what big thing I'm really getting out of this conversation is, which I wanted to make sure our audience understand, that it's not about just asking. You're asking with the data. You have evidence, you have information to support that, hey, if we do this, it's not going to change your quality of life, and it's it's going to impact for the greater good, possibly, or maybe the organization's growth.
Now, that is true. For this round of negotiations, we really prepared for 1.5 years.
Wow.
1.5 years before, did all the things, the pros and cons, what we could offer them, which had limited cost for us, but big benefits to them. Like, for instance, and people don't realize that even in USA in the 80s, there were a lot of people, these were people who were not guaranteed 40 hours work, okay? So
Wow.
some of the people were making a lot of money, but many, about 20% of the workforce was not. They could one day work, next day they couldn't get work. So the equivalent of they're really worked, even though they're on the payroll, they're really working equivalent of like 20, 25 hours a week.
So it was very hard for them to live.
So very hard. So this is one of the things I guaranteed. I said, we'll guarantee 40 hours work for everybody there, okay? And second thing we did is we looked at some of the costs which we're incurring, and I said, I will offer you, they had no pension rights.
Right.
So at a later date, I offered them a equivalent like a 401k plan at that time, a 401, and which was again a big thing. I said, you guys are going to be millionaires.
You were
by
a
the time.
visionary. If I say from that perspective, you are truly
Yeah,
a visionary.
I think in order to get something, you have to give something, but you have to give what you think makes sense. And this pension deal turned out to be, because these rail employees, by the way, they work on train crews, and this was Wall Street. All the trains used to go to serve Wall Street guys. So they used to get these great stock tips, and some of them were, and they were runners on Wall Street as well. So they understood the value of money. So I said, you're going to do an investment account. We'll give you the right after a while. With your own money, you can invest whatever you want.
Yeah.
I said, you'll become millionaires before you retire.
That's
and
awesome.
some of them did. They thanked me. I still meet some of them, and
wow.
I feel very proud of some of these kind of things in my life, that I was able to do something good for the company as well as good for them.
Yeah, and that's the biggest problem, DC, I really see. A lot of time we see organizations and the team which really build the organization, they're not seeing each other, right? And if we can have an open dialogue, I believe we can improvise things dramatically. I mean, we saw what happened in Boeing too. I mean, it's not known fact. If the management and the team worked together, things wouldn't have happened. We have such a major catastrophe a few years ago. So it's just having an open dialogue, open mind. But the big thing I got out of this conversation is, don't be afraid to ask. But when you ask, be prepared. Don't just ask for ask. Be prepared. You should know what you're asking.
No, it is another story. I mean, I'm going into my railroad career.
Please.
But I was dealing with Amtrak on number of trains we could run into Penn Station, New York in the peak, okay? Because of train capacity on tracks, you could run like 25 trains per hour maximum at that time. And we had done some improvements to reach from 20 to 25. Now we were heavy commuter trains, so we are running about 19 trains, and I wanted to go up to 20. But one more train, extra every train was a lot of value.
Yeah.
So I asked Amtrak, I said, will you be willing to sell one of your slots to us under the agreement? So I asked for 2, and I was willing, I paid them. I said, I'll pay you 20 million for 2. And the reason I did the work is that they were not going to use them for a long time, especially in the morning, because the services coming out of Washington, by the time they hit New York, was like 8:39, and the commuter period is over. So I did all this research, and at the end of the day, I did get one slot for 10 million, and this is in 2002. Today, that slot is worth 500 million.
Wow.
Because if you're building a new tunnel, which is going to cost close to $12 billion,
at least
in today's money, and it's going to add same 25 slots per hour. You divide the two together, you go over 500. So that's the value of that slot today. So I just was talking to I've retired now from NJ Transit, and this agreement is now 20 years old. It has my signature on it. I said, don't meddle with that thing ever. You know what the value of that thing is today. People don't realize it though. People don't think in those terms. And but anyway, so sorry about this noise.
No, it's okay. So DC, this is amazing. I mean, it's an amazing story, and I'm I'm really inspired and I learn a lot myself. So let's talk a little bit about your hostel days. So what was your hostel in IIT Bombay?
In IIT Bombay, that we were in numbers. So hostel, I was in hostel 4,
Hostel 4,
uh,
H4. Oh,
H4.
H4.
And so there's a lot of, today the hostel is decrepit, it's about to be torn down and a new one built.
Yeah.
But I was fortunate, we had a nice group. I'd come from Jaipur to IIT Bombay, so a lot of my class, I was in batch of 69, so we were in hostel 2 and 3, which were nearby. One of the smarter thing I did, we had a strike, mess servant strike, the first year we had.
Wow.
So the next year I said, they asked, do you want to be a mess secretary? I said, sure, I'll become mess secretary. And that was, I used to live on campus. That took care. I got to know the mess servants, but the more important things for the little time I spent was they took care of me, especially on Saturdays, Sundays when most of the students had left for the
They're gone
campus to
home.
home or something. So I said, let's fix the menu for the people who are staying on campus. So we had our Sunday menu was aloo parathas and all the rest of it.
Nice.
And
That's a great part.
a good one, right? So that
So you understood negotiation from mess. Now I know how
yeah,
you're able
I
to
used to,
negotiate.
it's not negotiable, but again, it's if you're given the opportunity, use it,
True, true.
So that,
No, these are great
and
learnings, DC. We don't realize it at that age when you get experience of dealing with such a complex group of people. I mean, they are not really, they don't have the kind of mind frame you and me have. So it's very different. And when you understand it, that's how you are building these muscles.
no, it is, it was a good experience. Campus was, first
Great.
2 3 years, it didn't realize what we are doing, kind of thing. So if it's first year is really, you're matching people are much smarter than
So I
you.
have a question for you from the campus. How much of the story of Chichore is real and how much of that is fake or
I think
fiction?
lot of it is real, actually,
I
because
felt that.
there is it used to be, I can go from ragging days when you join the campus. And luckily, my batch was very small, so ragging was limited. But heard stories of people put, and one guy actually, he came to campus, I think a week early, and people didn't know that he was in the same batch as themselves. So he ragged his own batchmates until they saw him.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
And then there were stories of water dunking, balloon fights, and balloon to kya wo balti se pani dalte the na,
Exactly.
and all that, and everything else. But it builds the bonds and friendships, at the end of the day,
Lifelong.
which sort of lifelong lasted. And so and especially for people who used to live on campus and didn't go and had family in Bombay or something, you got together and talked about everything. You got a chance to, I mean,
Build that.
explore music, etc., which at home you really didn't have that kind of ability. You came across people who like jazz, people who like classical music, or because at the time you just listen to Hindi music from films, Bollywood and so it was a good experience that way. Read a lot of books from even today. Um,
Anyone you would
and
like to talk about? Any book which still resonates with you?
I read actually I read a lot of different things from science fiction to uh, even people like Anne Rand, like Atlas Shrugged. At that time, they made a lot of sense. Then realize it doesn't really. As you grow up, some of these books you put aside. You read philosophy of Russell. You read history, like Indian history, Nehru's books and Ottawa. Some of them I read in school, but later on. So I like reading and still do. And but science fiction is sometimes very interesting. And I still remember one book, short story. This guy goes to space, Mars or some other planet, comes back, and he's like 2 minutes out of sync with Earth time. So he knows exactly everything happening 2 minutes before it happens once he lands. So he can see people entering, what they're going to say, and it throws him out of sync for a while. It was a very good story. I still remember it vividly, So
That's
yeah,
a good plot for a movie.
good plot for a
Live
movie.
in 2
Yeah.
minutes.
Go to the horse races and you know the winners are all the time, you know.
Exactly. I'm 2 minutes forward.
Moves forward. So, but it's sometimes you come across these interesting books and talk to people. So, and got involved in setting more organizations.
Awesome. So, DC, one more question I have for you is if you can go back in time and meet anyone, doesn't matter in our generation or previous generation or 1,000 years ago, who will that be and why?
Oh, that's a tough one. I don't know. There's so many people you like to meet, you know.
Just one,
Uh,
the one wish will be granted today.
no, I don't. No, I've been very fortunate. I got to learn about whether it was Gandhi or Nehru or Einstein. That each of them have played so much in the lives of us in different ways, you know.
We're so
So
grateful to all of them.
actually, I was just in the bar yesterday in Princeton. The poster Einstein passed away on April 18th. So just kidding around that today's the day. There's the so it's then I was quite impressed with what Gandhi did because he came out of the freedom movement that time, and Nehru for starting the IITs and all the rest of it. This is in the early stages. As you grow older, it's a different kind of people. Your interests change, obviously.
No, absolutely. Now, DC, I can't thank you for your time today. It was truly inspirational, and the work you have done for IIT community, I want to really thank you. It's phenomenal. We are all
And,
going to work for it, and we'll continue to motivate. And please do continue to motivate all of us.
thanks you, Sanjiv, for the interview and appreciate your time. Yeah, the IIT community is really such a good network of friends, and they support you whenever you need them. And so it's good to give back as well. And I've been fortunate now in the later part of my life to do that. Thanks. Thanks
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you so much.